Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 406 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined, as ever, by former heavyweight world title challenger, the main man himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers, all the way there in New Jersey. Eddie, how you doing this week, my man?
I'm doing great, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. Let's dive straight into the review part of the show. A lot to go over. I'm going to start here with last Friday, which was July the 21st at the Meadowbank Sports Centre in Edinburgh, Scotland, United Kingdom. This one was live on Channel 5. I have to say, if the matchmaker on this card still has a job this week, then I will be stunned. The matchmaker was horrendous, and I don't know who it was, by the way. Obviously it was a Sauerland show, so I'm guessing it was a Sauerland matchmaker, but my god, the matchmaking was so bad. Let me start with this. I mean, honestly, I think it was the most unpredictable weekend of boxing in terms of results that there's been all year, and I paid the price, man. Terrible. Like, everything I predicted went horrifically wrong, and I'm gonna get into that. Let's start here though with this card. Cash Ali on the card, 21-1. I remember him losing that one time to David Price when he actually bit him, didn't he? I think he decided to bite him at one point, and I think he got disqualified, if I'm not mistaken. But he's had such a stop-start career. I think you know him as well, Eddie. Anyway, 21-1, now 21-2. He lost on points over 6 rounds to Bohdan Myronets, who's now 7-1. Hadn't heard of him at all. I don't think he was put in there to win. I tell you what, this guy certainly wasn't put in to win. Konstantin Dovbychenko. We saw him last time out coming over here and going the distance with Moses Itauma, becoming the first man to take him the distance. He stepped in here. He's now picked up his 10th pro win. He's now 10-13 with a draw. A 5th round TKO against the previously undefeated Matty Harris. Oh my goodness, a huge upset. Matty Harris was 5-0 with 4 KOs. They expected him to probably get some rounds in here with Dovbychenko, who's such a tough guy. And Harris actually had Dovbychenko down in round 2. And then just seemed to shoot his load, really. And, he got so tired so quickly. And Dovbychenko, of course, was able to soak up the pressure and come back and end up forcing a referee stoppage in round 5 of a 6-rounder. So that pretty much ruined every single bet that I had on, by the way. So Matty Harris really cost me quite a lot there. I was stunned with that outcome, actually. Absolutely stunned to the core. And Matty Harris is a guy that obviously Kalle Sauerland has been hyping up for such a long time. Young guy, heavyweight, sparred everyone, gives everyone problems, etc., etc. We hear it a lot about different heavyweights. But yeah, he has been found out massively there, and I am, completely still stunned. Elsewhere on the card, friend of the show, Harlem Eubank, moved to 18-0, a TKO for him in round 7 of a scheduled 8 against Ishmael Ellis, who's now 14-7. I think it's time for Harlem Eubank to step things up. Ellis down in the 6th round and again prior to the stoppage. I didn't actually see this fight, to be totally honest with you, but happy obviously for Harlem. And friend of the show, always good to see a friend of the show do well. But like I say, it's a couple of opponents I think he's boxed now, in a short space of time that we haven't really heard of or expected much from, and it was just a one-sided fight from what I've heard. So yeah, all the best there to Harlem moving forward. Moving up the card once again, Isaac Lowe back in action here. I believe it was supposed to be a 6-round fight, but I think they moved it to an 8-rounder at the last minute. But anyway, he didn't need 8 rounds. He's now 23-2 with 3 draws, a TKO in round 5 for Isaac Lowe against Jonathan Santana, who's now 9-6 with a draw. I expected Isaac Lowe to go the distance and probably beat him over 6 rounds on points. I don't think Isaac had knocked anyone out for about 5 years. Jonathan Santana, pretty tough. I don't think he'd been knocked out for about 5 years. So again, I expected Isaac to win on points. Again, it was a 6-rounder. It's been moved to an 8-rounder, but yeah, I was quite surprised to see him get the stoppage there, especially when he hasn't really been in good recent form. And by the way, Isaac as well, friend of the show. Moving up the card once again, Sultan Zorbek, now 15-0, a TKO for him in round 3 against the previously undefeated Spaniard with the most English, or I guess American as well, sounding name in history, John Carter. You'd never know he's actually from Spain. He's now 15-1 with a draw. And then, yeah, the main event, wow, it was a fantastic fight for the vacant IBO World Super Bantamweight title between Lee McGregor, 12-0 with a draw, undefeated of course. He got in there with Eric Ayala, who I believe was from Mexico. I know that you can just assume someone's Mexican just by the sound of their name. I don't want to do that. I know there's a lot of different kind of nations around that part of the world, and they all have those type of surnames. But I want to say he was from Mexico, and if he is, then yeah, that's another Mexican invasion into the UK, and another guy to take an O away from a prospect, or at least beat a guy on these shores. But no, it was a fantastic fight. I felt Lee McGregor, I don't want to say could have nicked it. I mean, it was close. I'm not entirely sure I'd say could have nicked it. It was close. I liked a lot of the stuff Lee McGregor was doing. You could see he's a much more skilled fighter, but Ayala was just relentless, and he'd let go of his, of his shots time and time again without really caring about what was coming back. He took so many fantastic left hooks to the body as well. I don't know what the hell his the right side of his body's made out of. He was just taking those shots. They were bouncing off of his rib cage. Didn't seem to bother him at all. So I think Lee McGregor at one point was probably a bit confused as to why this guy was able to take his shots so well, because not many people do take McGregor's shots so well. He's a big puncher for the weight, and obviously big guy for the weight as well. But yeah, it didn't play a factor here, and Ayala was tough as they come. And yeah, like I say, every time McGregor did land a good shot, Ayala would come back, and I think Ayala, started the fight really well, ended the fight really well. McGregor had a few rounds in the mid-rounds where he did a lot of good work. Like I say, I wasn't scoring it, but I felt it was quite close, and obviously they didn't try and sting him on the cards. So yeah, like I say there, we've mentioned, I think 6 fights on that card there that took place on Friday night in Scotland, the Sauerland card, and 3 of them, the home fighter lost in an upset. So yeah, like I said, I don't think that matchmaker will be flooded with too much work in the future. Moving out now though to the Dubai Studio City. In Dubai, over here, another upset. Friend of the show, Jazza Dickens, now 32-5. Again, I think this guy was about 1-12 on. It was for the IBO World Featherweight title. Good guy is Jazza Dickens. Haven't spoke to him for a few years, but, a good guy. Really nice guy, actually. One of boxing's good guys. And a real character as well, by the way. But yeah, sad to see him knocked out in round 10 of a scheduled 12 there by Hector Andres Sosa, who I'm going to say again is probably a Mexican. He's now 16-2. Yeah, again, I didn't really see this fight at all. I saw Jazza, though, get absolutely flatlined with a shot there in round 10, and it was a big shot, and he was completely out. So yeah, sad to see, man. Really sad to see, especially as Jazza was in really good form. Like I said on last week's show, aside from that loss to Kid Galahad, he's been in blistering form. And I didn't know anything really about Sosa, so I expected Dickens probably to win on points, and like I say, another thing that I got horribly wrong. And I will say as well, again, I expected Isaac Lowe to win on points on the other show, didn't happen. I expected Lee McGregor just to win the fight by any method, didn't happen. And yeah, obviously Matty Harris, that was shocking to see him lose. Moving on though, moving now to the Shumash Casino in California, USA. One of the fights I didn't decide to put a wager on when I definitely should have. Sergei Bohachuk, 23-1 now. Once again, has never heard the final bell, whether it be a win or a loss. He gets a knockout in the very first round against Ghana's Patrick Alote, who's now 42-5. Again, very padded record, and he seems to lose every big fight he has. He was down and counted out there in the very first round for the WBC Continental America's Super Welterweight title. Bohachuk, always good to watch, always good to watch. Every punch he throws is with bad intentions, and he's not been in a dull fight just yet. Moving now to this one, it went down at the Fire Lake Arena in Shawnee, Oklahoma, USA. It was live on ESPN. Let's touch on the undercard. A knockout win for Jeremiah Milton. It was actually a corner retirement. He's now 10-0. Willie Harvey actually was the man in the other corner, now 4-3 with 2 draws. Like I say, retired on his store at the end of round 4, didn't come out for round 5. Good win for Jeremiah Milton. Also on the card as well, friend of the show, Troy Isley, now 10-0, a unanimous decision over 8 rounds against Antonio Todd, now 14-9. A huge upset once again on the card, another one I did not see coming. It seemed like everything I bet on was cursed. Stefan Shaw, now 18-2, a TKO loss in round 6 to Joseph Goodall, who's now at 10-1 with a draw. So Joseph was able to get the TKO. Heavy shot as well. I think Goodall was from Australia. I'm guessing had some kind of connection to obviously George Kambosos in the main event. I'm going to just assume. But yeah, I said on last week's show, I was very impressed with Stefan Shaw's skill set when we saw him lose to Efia Jagbar. He looked really good, but just seemed to slow down late on. And here, I didn't see it. I did see the knockout, like I say, but I was stunned because I didn't really, think much of Joseph Goodall. And yeah, I just expected, obviously, Stefan Shaw to win his fight and look good in doing so. And like I say, he's got the skill set, but yeah, shocking upset once again. Another massive upset this weekend. That's why I've been saying it was the hardest week of boxing to predict. Also on the card, Giovanni Santillan, now 31-0, a unanimous decision over 10 there against Eric Bonet, who is now 27-7. Again, Bonet had some big moments in that fight against Santillan, who for me I think needs to get a world title shot, pretty much now or never, because I feel like there's a few miles on that clock now, and he's still undefeated, like I say, 31-0, but I think he's going to burn out very soon, and, if he's going to become a world champion, I think it is now or never for him. But no, nonetheless, good win, like I say, and yeah, he's going to have to wait his turn because obviously there's a lot of guys chomping at the bit at 147. Moving up the card once again, Keyshawn Davis, a man that I love watching fight. I think he's a really, really, really talented fighter. Now 9-0, a unanimous decision there over 10 rounds against Francesco Patera, who's now 28-4. Patera down in round 8. It was for the WBC USA and the WBO Intercontinental Lightweight titles. Yeah, like I say, Keyshawn, very, very skilled guy. I think he's got a very, very bright future. I've always been, pretty high on him since he turned over. But yeah, interesting to see his fights, go quite late now. In the last 3 outings, he's gone into round 8. Against Burgos. He obviously didn't knock him out. No one has knocked him out. Then last time out before this one, got in with Anthony Yigit, went 9 rounds with him. Rolando Romero only went 7. Ivan Baranchik only went 7, but he went 9. And then here gets in with Francesco Patera, who to his credit had never been stopped, and he didn't stop him either. So he's gone, like I say, in his last 3 fights into round 8, then 9, then 10. But yeah, again, I did think that the stoppage would come, and it would probably come late on. But I didn't give Patera enough credit, I guess, on being that tough guy that he is. And he wouldn't stand in front of Keyshawn Davis for long enough, I don't think. He was very, very mobile the whole night. He had great, great footwork. And also, he landed a few decent shots on Davis as well. Nothing to trouble him too much, but enough to get that respect, I think, from Davis. And at times, he was actually turning Davis on the ropes, you know, and putting the pressure on him, and Davis was having to fight off the ropes. I think he was... I think he surprised Keyshawn, you know, how strong he was actually, because when they were in the clinch, at times he seemed to kind of manhandle Davis, which again just didn't look right on the eye. But you know, Patera is a really tough guy. Again, I think he'd put together a fantastic run of wins, about 10 in a row. I said he'd beaten some good fighters along the way, like Lewis Ritson, and yeah. It's a really good test, I think, for Keyshawn Davis. He'll learn a lot from that fight, you'd have thought. And then, moving to the main event, George Kambosos Jr., friend of the show, now 21-2, a majority decision over 12 rounds for the IBO World Lightweight title against the UK's very own Maxi Hughes, now 26-6 with 2 draws. One thing I do have to say is, what an awful, awful outcome here. You know, I wanted George to win. I said it on last week's show, even though I'm a Brit, he's been on the show, so that supersedes the I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. I guess the patriotic side of me. It kind of supersedes that. If you've been on the show, that's it. You're a friend of the show, and it supersedes, you know, me wanting to support my countrymen in a fight of any kind, you know. It's that's the way I kind of see things. So I wanted George Kambosos to win. I bet on George Kambosos to win, and I was very confident he'd win, you know, very, very confident he'd win. I thought, yeah, okay, he took that beating against Devin Haney, but I think he would have learnt something in those fights, and he wouldn't have been able to be tagged as easy, you know, by someone of the skill set of Maxi Hughes. No disrespect to him. I thought, okay, you know, he's been in there with Devin Haney. Devin Haney lit him up, let's be honest, for 24 rounds. But he's not going to let anything like that happen to him here against Maxi Hughes. He's not going to get hit as much and all the rest of it. Well, how wrong I was. Maxi Hughes, I couldn't believe it. I mean, honestly, there's been so much talk on social media over the past few days about those scorecards. There was one scorecard, 117-111 in favour of George Kambosos, which literally means that judge gave Maxi Hughes just 3 rounds. It's mad because I did see people that gave all 6 of the first 6 to Maxi Hughes, so I don't understand how on earth you can only give him 3 in a 12-round fight. I was happy that the commentary team went in on that judge as well. They said, I think it was Chris Algieri, again another friend of the show. He said that judge must have filled in that scorecard on his way to the venue. You know, there's no way he was watching that fight. And I'm happy to hear the judge criticised. An awful scorecard, honestly, one of the very worst you'll see. And yeah, for me, Maxi Hughes won. I don't think I've seen anyone out there that actually thought George Kambosos won the fight. Outrage over Twitter, like I say. I was obviously happy that I picked up a bit of money betting on George Kambosos, but for me, I felt it wasn't fair, to be honest with you, because he definitely lost that fight. And yeah, obviously it was his first fight with Top Rank, and I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it just reeked, man. It was just a terrible, terrible scorecard. I think you could probably give Kambosos maybe 3 rounds, maybe 4. Honestly, I don't think I'd even give him 5 rounds at all. I think I'd probably give him 3 or 4. Maxi Hughes absolutely dominated George Kambosos. And Maxi Hughes, another guy who has been on a hell of a run, and obviously it's now come to an end by a controversial decision. One judge obviously had it a draw. Even that wasn't good enough. And the other 2 judges, I honestly do not understand it. You know, it's just so bad, man, when these things happen to fighters, especially a fighter like Maxi Hughes, who, like I say, has kind of been around the domestic scene in Britain for a long time. You know, doesn't have a massive fan base, doesn't have a massive following, wasn't signed to a big promoter. I don't think, I know he's obviously been on a few of Eddie Hearn's shows, but again, I don't think Eddie Hearn, you know, I don't think he's actually under contract with Eddie Hearn, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he is. And I don't think there's going to be much people who really care. It's going to be just forgotten about. I say this quite a lot on the podcast, but some guys are easy to rob. And Maxi Hughes is that type of guy. No one's going to care next week. And it's sad because this happens a hell of a lot in boxing. You know, you see a guy with no popularity lose a fight and no one gives a damn the next day. You know, it's forgotten about. So George Kambosos obviously wants to push on. He was speaking, I think, about fighting Shakur Stevenson. He's no way in the world going to give Maxi Hughes a rematch. Maxi Hughes, though, should be the winner of that fight, and I just don't know where he goes from here, unfortunately. I like it sometimes when the rankings, you know, like the sanctioning bodies decide, you know what, I don't agree with that, so we're not going to take him out the rankings. They've done that in the past before. That, you know, we need something like that, because there's just too much of this going on in boxing, and it was a flat-out robbery. Even though I wanted Kambosos to win, it was a flat-out robbery. Maxi Hughes should have a win here and should be the guy getting the big fight and the big payday next time out, but it's just not going to happen for him, and that really hurts me and obviously hurts him and hurts boxing in general, actually. So, yeah, I don't really want to say too much more on it. It's just going to kind of wind me up. But, yeah, such an unfair situation for Maxi Hughes, and he won that fight, and I'm just so proud of him, actually, for beating Kambosos, who, you know, at one point I think had, the majority of the belts. I can't even remember now when he beat Teofimo. I don't think he was undisputed, was he? I think Haney might have had one of the titles or whatever it was. I can't even remember now. The WBC situation was a bit confusing, you know, email champs and the rest of it. I can't even remember the situation. But anyways, he legitimately beat Teofimo Lopez. Haney put a whooping on him. And then Maxi Hughes, who no one would have given a chance in hell against George Kambosos after he beat Teofimo Lopez, goes in there and, for me, kind of schooled Kambosos, in all honesty, but doesn't get the decision. So heartbreak for Maxi. All the best to him, and I hope he, you know, comes back soon and in a good fight. And he deserves all the plaudits, really, from everyone. Moving out now to the Municipal Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee, USA. Again, another upset. Friend of the show, Tyler Tomlin, now 14-2. He was knocked out in round 6 against Abdul Sulseda, who's 11-3. It's been a rough ride for Tyler Tomlin. You know, I think he was a good amateur, if I'm not mistaken. Turned pro. We had him on the show. Nice guy. And yeah, suffered, you know, a shock defeat early on and then suffers another defeat here. I don't know where his ceiling is, but it doesn't look great for him at the moment. And then, yeah, moving to the final card to mention on this part of the show, which is the review part. We're going to start here, or finish here, I should say, this Tuesday, July 25th at the Ariake Arena in Kotoku, Tokyo, Japan. Let's start with the undercard just briefly. Robisi Ramirez with a nice knockout in round 5 against Satoshi Shimizu, who's now 11-2, but the champion, still champion, is Robisi Ramirez, 13-1. A defense here successful of his WBO World Featherweight title. Quite interesting at the weigh-in. Shimizu didn't want to look Ramirez in the eye face to face. He turned away when it was, you know, they posed for the cameras, and then after that Ramirez faced Shimizu, and Shimizu just walked off. He didn't want to do a face-off, which was kind of strange. And even in the middle of the ring, when the referee called them both to the middle of the ring to start the fight, he seemed like he was kind of like he didn't really want to be there, to be honest with you. But tough guy, took a lot of big shots actually before the stoppage, and, you know, much bigger in stature as well. He was just popping out that southpaw jab. And yeah, not really doing much, to be honest. Didn't really land anything significant himself at any stage. And a lot of people were kind of saying, I was looking on Twitter during the fight, a lot of people saying that Ramirez isn't that good, but I was quite impressed with him. I thought he looked really good, actually, so I was impressed at least. And yeah, cruises to victory there, nice and easy, gets a knockout in the first half of the fight. Like I say, round 5, I think that was about 2-1. So yeah, happy for him there. And then yeah, moving to the main event. I know you watched this fight, Eddie, so I'll come to you actually straight away. And I don't know if you saw much of the Ramirez fight. If you did, you can have a word on that. But yeah, Stephen Fulton, friend of the show, friend of yours. You've known him for absolute years. Yeah, dethroned of his WBC and WBO World Super Bantamweight titles. He's lost his O as well. He's now 21-1. A TKO loss for him in round 8 against Japanese monster Mr. Naoya Inoue, now 25-0, captures another few world titles to put in the display cabinet. and of course another weight division as well. I'm not going to say my piece until after you've said yours, Eddie, but what did you make of it?
He's a special fighter. I mean, that's all you can say. I mean, you got to take your hat off to Scooter and Cool Boy Steph for actually, going over there. He took, it was a long way to go, you know what I mean, for a fight, especially in enemy territory. And, sometimes it's like you got to, no guts, no glory, you know what I mean? And he went out there and he did what he could, which, to be quite honest, wasn't very much, because the kid is just really special. I mean, you could just see it from round one, his jab and, not only the speed, but even the IQ and understanding. Even now, I'm going to go into something that he did. He was jabbing to the body. His stab to the body was really, really good early. And you could tell the power even from the jab. And he was literally doing it. Don't get me wrong, he jabbed to the head as well. But that jab to the body was so pronounced, it wasn't so much exaggerated as it caught your attention. And he was doing it round after round after round after round. Even though he was jabbing to the head, you still will remember that jab to the body. So here comes the end of the fight. And once again, he goes to the jab to the body, but then the next time he does something a little different. He goes to that jab to the body and then brings the right hand right over top. And you could tell Scooter was not expecting it at that time. Already a hard puncher, already got good speed. And then all of a sudden land a shot that he didn't really see. Spells that's disaster, for the other guy. So, I mean, it just things like that. And then over the course of the fight, you could just see he couldn't get a real foothold in it. The power and speed, the IQ, everything that went into it was just so much to deal with for him. You know what I mean? Like I said, you're already in a place you're not comfortable. In a situation, even though you're the champion, you're not really comfortable. Everybody's there to see him beat you. You understand what I'm saying? And it's just, then you get into the fight and it's not going the way you expected. You're not really able to get any good shots off really for the first really 6 rounds. And you just know, you could just feel it. It's like you're hoping that something comes up. I remember with Vladimir, and it was just so difficult for me to get any offense going because, to be fair, he was dirty. But at the same time, even within the rules, he was just very difficult to get to. And I seen this in a slightly different way, but as Inoue, he was just so difficult for him to get to. He couldn't get his hands off in the times that need to get him off because he just wasn't there. And even if he was there, he would come right back with a vengeance. And it was just like, I can't keep him off me. What do I do? And you could see it, even early in the fight when he got hit with something, like it kind of shook him a little bit, and he was just on his bike trying to be defensively sound, which is great. But you got to have the offense to back it up, and he just didn't have it. And I think all of it had to do with, just how good Nail Inoue is. He truly showed that he is really the boogeyman. He's really the monster because he killed it today.
Yeah, well put, Eddie. Such a display from Naoya Inoue. I will give my round-by-round breakdown. Round 1, I felt that Stephen Fulton was a little bit hesitant for me, a little bit too hesitant, falling short with his jabs, throwing them from way too far out, making that noise as well where he threw it like, but then also falling short. So it's like, I feel like he was kind of putting quite a bit of power on them, but they were still falling short, which obviously isn't a good thing at all. Looked a little bit too nervous. Inoue started to dominate the round in the second half of it. He was stepping up that pace, landing some powerful jabs that you mentioned, Eddie, particularly to the body. Obviously won the first round. I'm going to just save myself time and say he won every round. Round 2, Inoue again controlling that fight. Again, Fulton very hesitant to commit, looked real uncomfortable, not a good start. Inoue was starting to read Fulton like a book already. Round 3, another dominating round by Naoya Inoue. The speed and the reflexes were just worlds apart from that of Fulton. Also, Fulton's nose as well started to bleed in that round. Thankfully, they got it under control. Round 4, Inoue again for me, obviously, nicked that round. Fulton did try to up his aggressiveness. He finally started to throw the jab with a bit more conviction, a bit more power as well in his right hand. But again, Inoue was mostly able to beat Fulton to the punch and put a larger dent in him. Round 5, another Inoue round. His counters were just so sharp. I felt as well at that stage, at the end of round 5, the fight's already over in my opinion. It's just a case of if Fulton will be able to withstand these punches till the final bell. I thought he probably would. During the fight, I felt he probably would. Obviously, you'll remember on last week's show, I said to you, Eddie, I feel like he might just catch Fulton late on, and we both said we didn't want that to happen, but that is what ended up happening. But yeah, there was just zero fear in Inoue, zero caution. Although he was a smaller guy in height and size, he looked so physically strong, and that power, that speed, it neutralized the size advantage that Fulton had. Obviously, yeah, round 6, I'm getting a bit lost here, but all Inoue. Round 7, Fulton actually landed a nice right hand, and you'd have hoped it finally was a punch that would maybe force Inoue to respect Fulton, but no, I felt it actually made him kind of mad, and after that he started to increase his own work rate again. It was scary. Fulton landed probably 2 or 3 really good shots in that round, but to no real effect. Inoue still, like I say, had it on my card a shutout, and then round 8, as you say, Eddie, jab to the body, right hand over the top. He'd been thinking about landing that little 2-piece all night. Fulton goes down. Haven't seen anyone show any outrage about it at all, but obviously I'm gonna be really kind of devil's advocate here and a real by the book guy. When he lands that jab and then comes over the top with a right hand, Fulton stumbles and touches the canvas with both his gloves.
Obviously, I was going to agree with that, Joe.
Yeah.
The referee, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I've seen that too.
Yeah, the referee isn't quick enough to jump in and stop it right there, which he of course should have done. If your glove touches the canvas, that's it. It's a knockdown. And obviously, while Fulton's kind of getting back up after, it all happened very quickly, of course. But when his hands touch the canvas and he pops back up, he takes a free shot, that left hook, pretty much from behind him as well. It was like almost like sucker punch style, if you like. And that was the shot that put him down and out. I say down and out, he obviously got back up, but that flatlined him. He got back up bravely enough, tried to carry on, and then just got swarmed. But yeah, just being a bit controversial. I haven't seen anyone say anything. I don't think it would have changed much. If anything, it might have actually done Fulton a favour that the fight was ended that quickly. Maybe if he was given a count, he might have got through that round and took an even bigger beating. It did not look like Fulton was going to stop Inoue, and that is what needed to happen for him to win the fight. But just want to say, I haven't seen anyone mention that, but definitely the referee should have been in there a bit quicker. That's just a fact. It'd be interesting to see if anyone wants to say anything about that. And by the way, we didn't have Twitter last week. I said it on the end of the show. The BoxHard Podcast Twitter at BoxHard Podcast, which I've had for 8 years, was permanently banned. So we now have a new Twitter. You can follow that. It's at BoxHard_Twitter. I'm getting confused. At BoxHard_podcast. So there's an underscore now between BoxHard and podcast that wasn't there before, but please follow that. And anyone that follows that will, of course, follow back. You know, if you want to come on there for a bit of a discussion and maybe comment on that little topic there. I'm interested to see what fans think that Fulton didn't obviously get a chance to recuperate at all there when he should have, really. But yeah, like I say, he did get to him in the end, and it was sad to see. I do just want to say, obviously, credit to Fulton for going there a long way from home. You know, he celebrated his birthday out there in Japan, not with his family, and yeah, like I say, I'm not sure what he was paid. I'm sure he was paid quite a handsome piece of money, but yeah, brave guy, man, brave guy. And we knew that already about Fulton, let's be completely honest. The run he's been on, he's been fighting good fighter after good fighter after good fighter. Like, he runs from absolutely nobody, and I shouldn't even have to make that a point to say, oh, he's so brave, he wants to fight the best, because to be honest, he's always wanted to fight the best. And if anyone doubted that, then you certainly can't doubt it anymore. And I will say, I don't think that that's the end of Stephen Fulton. I think we will see him again very, very soon, probably much sooner than a lot of people would think, because I think he fits straight back into the top of that division again, depending on what Inoue wants to do. Already they're they got Marlon Tapales, the other champion who holds the other 2 belts. They got him in the ring straight away. He was ringside. They got him in the ring straight away. Inoue said, I want to fight you before the year's out. So obviously it seems like he wants to be undisputed. And then he probably won't stay there for too long. He might even try and move up again. So I think at that point in time, Fulton will be right back in the picture. And he may not even have to wait an entire 12 months. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him back out again real soon. All the best to him, friend of the show. But yeah, that brings the review part to a close. It's now time to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Morecambe's featherweight contender. It is, of course, Mr. Isaac Lowe. Isaac, welcome back on the show, my man.
How you doing, pal? Good to have us back on. How's it going?
Yeah, good to get you back on. It's been quite a while. Yeah, it's going well. Good to be back on the phone. So we last spoke, Isaac, in February 2020, a long time ago. It was just before. Yeah, it was just before the Alberto Guevara fight, which turned out to be a brilliant win for you. Yeah, you won the next fight after that as well. Then obviously came the Luis Alberto Lopez fight. At that time, Isaac, no one really knew how good Lopez was. Obviously, you lost your O to him. However, is there much shame in that looking back now? Because look what he's gone on to achieve.
No, definitely not. It was under the radar a little bit. It was one of them fights where it was should have took it, but when it was a final limit for the IBF, you had to take it. And obviously, with no one really knowing him, they were saying, "No, if you get beaten this and that, you don't know who he is." But it's proven he's a world-class fighter, and the people who he's beat after me, it shows he's the world number one in the IBF, and that's the reason why he's the IBF world champion. And you look at the defeat, what he gave Michael Conlan, and then you look at my one, I think that only shows you grows my stock on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And yeah, the Nick Ball fight I was quite surprised with. I didn't think you were at your best there, but you are now on the comeback trail. 2 wins in a row now. Let's discuss that win on the weekend. I spoke about it earlier on in the show. I was convinced you'd win that fight on points. How wrong I was.
Yeah, he's a tough guy. He's never really been stopped. And he comes to fight, he comes to win. Even in the first couple of rounds, he caught me with a few shots and thought, here we go, well, I'm in for a bit of a tough night, but what I've been practicing in the gym is trying to keep more relaxed and calm. If I get tagged with a shot, don't go full steam ahead or get a red mist steam and go at it. And just trying to be composed more. I think I showed it in the fight. I just took my time, worked on a few things, and slowly broke them down. And I was big and strong in there. I felt really big. I felt really fit in there. And I think what we've been working on with the left hooks and up in the body, upstairs, downstairs, changing the momentum of the fight, I think it worked really good, and I think it showed.
Yeah, I mean, you say there, obviously, doesn't really get stopped. He'd only been stopped just the one time. It was over 4 years ago, and again, you hadn't stopped anyone in over 4 years. I really thought it was going to go the distance, but yeah, you get the stoppage. And it's important to say as well, you did a better job on him than Hopi Price did.
Yeah, listen, Opie's a world-class fighter. He's only a young lad coming through. He done a brilliant job of mastering with the boxing skill. He's a big, tall, awkward southpaw, Opie. So obviously he's only young. He's grown into the weight too. I think was that at super bantamweight or was that featherweight? I know it was one of the two. But I'm a bit more experienced. I've been at the weight longer. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that could tell the part of it, but I feel like I'm, as I said, me growing into featherweight, I've always competed, but I can easily still do super bantamweight. Do you know what I mean? So I think we're doing my nutrition right, my diet, and doing my training right. I think it showed in the fight how good I did. I rode back the years.
Yeah, you certainly did. And I wanted to ask Isaac, what's next? Obviously, you only did 5 rounds. You were probably expecting to do more than that. When do you want to be next out, and who's on the radar?
I want to be out as soon as I can. I'm back in the gym already. I was from the next day of the fight. I was back home running with the hills with the lads the day after. I want to try and keep busy because, as I said, it's been a bit of a slow start of the year. So it's crucial for myself to keep the momentum going now. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, with the stoppage, it gives me more confidence. I would absolutely love the Prince Patel fight if he's actually serious and wants to fight, or If he's just going to be a keyboard warrior, I don't know. But I would love to try and make that next. So I'll just see what the Sauerlands have got up in mind. If I did stay at featherweight, I did notice Jonathan Diggins got beat for the IBO world title. So maybe if the IBO title come up against I forgot his name now. That could be an opportunity. This is the Euro Series got the European title. We'll see who's about. Do you know what I mean? As I said, I'm open to anything. I just want some sensible fights. I'm open for anything. We'll see what the Sauerlands come back and say.
Yeah, Hector Sosa was the guy that beat Jazza Dickens. It was another shock. There was a lot of upsets over the weekend, as I'm sure you know. You touched on Prince Patel, Isaac. Where did that actually start from? I've seen a lot of back and forth on Twitter, obviously, for a few months now.
Yeah, it started a long time ago. As you may know, everyone knows. He's just a talker on Instagram or Twitter, I think he's famous, man. I think he looks at numbers or interviews. You'll probably see this and say, oh, it's done 4,000 views or so because he's mentioned my name. I think he's just aware he's got a screw loose, to be honest. But if he wants to make the fight, I think it will generally do good numbers because I think everyone wants me to fight him and beat him. I think everyone just wants me to shut him up, do you know what I mean? He wouldn't even last 5 rounds with me. So I would love to make that fight happen. I'd even move down to super bantamweight just to make the fight happen. But if he wants to fight or if he will fight, I don't know. He might overprice himself and try and look for a payday. I don't know.
And Isaac, I remember there was a time where I think you were both in London. I want to say it was London, but I think you were both in the same arena at the same time. I think you went over to confront him, but there was no footage of it, sadly. What did happen when you actually went over there?
There should be footage. I think IFL got it. I walked over and I grabbed him by the neck, and I was going to absolutely murder him, but the security guards got away, and he crumbled like a little girl, and that was the sign when I know he shit it. It's so good being good on the Twitter or on writing messages or whatever, but when he got face to face, I looked in his eyes, and he definitely doesn't want it. But let's see. For the fan point of view, or from my point of view, I think it'd be a great fight to make happen because as everyone wants to watch it, everyone wants to either see me knock him out or him knock me out, which you can never do that anyhow. But I think if we can make it happen, I'm willing to make it next.
Yeah, I think it is a fight that obviously generates a lot of interest, and it'd probably do you both good. It'd be good if we do see that. I wanted to ask you as well, Isaac. Obviously, Tyson Fury being your cousin, Fury and Ngannou. A lot of people unhappy with the fact that he's fighting, an MMA fighter. I'm sure you can understand that point of view, but how do you feel about it, Isaac?
I think it's a brilliant move. There's no one out there for him to fight. He's tried to make the AJ fight twice, and twice AJ's pulled out. Usyk fight was near enough done. And then Usyk pulled out because he got told he was getting 60-odd million to fight in Saudi, fights the Saudis. And obviously, it's not going to happen. The Saudis never had the money to back up. And I think now that they made it a lot harder to make it work. And with him joining the Saudis, he thought he could offer Tyson the money. But the top bottom of it is backfired on him. And now he's had to fight Usyk. And not Usyk, he's had to fight Debata for a 6 less than what he was getting to fight Tyson first at Wembley. But listen, as a boxing fan, of course, I want to see fight Usyk and I'll fight Joshua. Will they happen? I think they definitely will. I think Tyson will get this fight out of the way next October, and then you never know, you could see it in December. Tyson definitely wants it. So if they definitely want it, it would definitely be made.
Yeah, we hope we will see it, but I can understand from a commercial point of view why this Ngannou fight is happening. Getting back onto boxing, I will ask you this because it's almost here. Spence versus Crawford this weekend, Isaac. Who wins in your opinion, and are you staying up late for it?
More than likely, I probably will stay out because it's one of them fights where they're both in the peak, and it's took a bit to get made, but thank God they've got pen to paper and it's on. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, a lot of people saying Crawford, but I like Spence. I think Spence could do it, but I think it's one of them fights. It could go anywhere. It's who you like as a fighter. Do you know what I mean? I think there'll be some. They both can punch. They're both powerful. They're both world class, and that's why they're where they are on the pound for pound list. So I think it'll be a very interesting fight.
Cannot wait. Not long to go now. Just over 48 hours. And just before we wrap it up, Isaac, we've flown through all the questions that I had for you. If you just wanted to sign out with a closing message just to the listeners, if you want to say anything you like I say, we haven't had you on for a few years now. But yeah, sign out with a message before we let you go, my man.
Just everyone keep watching, and everyone obviously thank you for the support on the forums. And I know 99% of the people want me to fight this Prince Patel. And I promise you, on my behalf, I will do anything I can to make the fight happen. And I know everyone wants me to fight him to kick his ass, and I promise you I will kick his ass. And it's going to be a good back end of the year, so I'm expected to be busy. I expect to be in some good fights, and you all know what I do when I fight. I always entertain, so tune in and keep supporting.
Absolutely, I second that. Listen, Isaac, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. Congrats once again on that win, and we'll speak again soon enough, I'm sure.
Thank you very much now. God bless.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. We're going to start with this one here. Top Rank have announced a fight on the undercard of Jared Big Baby Anderson and Andriy Rudenko. We're going to see in the co-main Efia Jagba take on Zan Kosabutsky. Interesting, really, because obviously Kosabutsky was supposed to be boxing Jared Anderson on that date where obviously Charles Martin stepped in. And yeah, quite interesting to see Efia Jagba take the opponent and fight on the same night. That just seems a bit random. But yeah, it's going to be a night of heavyweights obviously there. Also on the card, we're going to see Bakodir Jalalov get in with Honoriode Ewaremi, who I do not know who that is, but another heavyweight. So yeah, it's going to be some heavy hitters there. August the 26th, again at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Tulsa, live on ESPN. In other news, just one other fight to mention. It's another Top Rank show. September the 15th, Luis Alberto Lopez, obviously fresh off his win last time out over Michael Conlan. He defends his IBF Featherweight World title against Joet Gonzalez. That one to go down in Corpus Christi, Texas, again live on ESPN. But anyway, that is it for the news. Moving now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here with this one. It goes down on Friday, July 28th at the Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, live on ESPN Plus. Let's start with the undercard. Couple good fights actually on this undercard, but anyway, this one here, Abraham Nova, 22-1. It is over 10 rounds here at super featherweight. We're going to see him get in with Jonathan Romero. Jonathan Romero, his record these days, 35-1, however, been extremely inactive of recent times. I remember he was linked with a few guys. I think he was even at one point going to be possibly fighting Archie Sharp. But anyway, yeah, boxed for a world title years and years ago against Kiko Martinez back in 2013. It's been 10 years since then, and like I say, he hasn't lost since then, but he's been extremely inactive. 2 fights in 2014, 3 fights in 2015, 1 in 2016. Then he was out the ring for 2 years, came back in 2018 with 2 fights, then disappeared for 2.5 years, came back in 2020 with 2 fights, then disappeared for another year, and then disappeared for another 6 months, and he's coming off again another year and a bit out the ring against Abraham Nova. 22-1, like I say, could be interesting, that one. One of the best fights I think on the card as well, probably the best fight actually of the card. Friend of the show, Andres Cortez, 19-0 in a 10-rounder here at 140 against Javier Martinez, 18-1. Martinez, the one loss came on points to Robson Conceição back in January of last year. Really good fight actually, because Martinez can fight and obviously Cortez can fight as well. I actually think this one's going to be a really, really good fight. I think it will probably steal the show, and there's a lot on the line really. You'd have to kind of, I guess that the winner will be surely getting a world title fight in the not so distant future. And then the main event, Sinisa Estrada, 24-0. She fights here against Leonela Udisa, who is 19-1 with 3 draws. Not really a big name. It's a defense here of Estrada's WBC and WBA world minimum weight titles. She gets in with, like I say, this lady here, who is really a light flyweight coming down in weight. And yeah, from Argentina, 34 years of age. I can't tell you too much about her at all. Haven't seen her fight. But yeah, coming down in weight. It's not the fight that Sinisa wanted, apparently, but it is what it is. Hopefully a bigger fight on the horizon once she gets this lady out of there. I say out of there. Once she gets past her, it's probably putting it better. I'm not sure she's going to get the stoppage here. From what I'm hearing about this girl, she is quite tough, but we'll have to wait and see. Moving out now to this next one, takes place at the Telford International Centre in Telford, Shropshire, United Kingdom. Over here, we're going to see Moses Itauma back out in action. He's 3-0. He gets in with Kevin Espindola, who is 7-7. It's a 6-rounder here. Kevin Espindola, extremely tough guy. Obviously, bit of a mad one in his last fight. He got in with Fraser Clark and he injured, I think it was his left arm or something like that, and it was clearly bothering him, and he decided to retire on his store after just 4 rounds. It was only a 6-rounder, but it was bothering him massively. But anyway, that was 6 months ago now. Hopefully the hand has healed up, but other than that, no one had knocked him out in his losses. He'd been the distance with Ivan Dyko as well. Been the distance with Solomon Dakers as well, though that doesn't surprise me too much. But yeah, gets in with Moses Itauma. I'm really unsure of what's going to happen here because he's really durable, but at the same time, he looked awful against Clark, but then that was because he only had one hand. So I'm not sure. Like, it's just a... There's no point betting on this fight, I don't think, because a knockout wouldn't surprise me. And also going the distance wouldn't surprise me. And from what I've had a little look at, it seems like they're both pretty much the same price. You can't even double your money on either one. It's just underneath even, so it's not really worth that. Worth getting involved in that. Elsewhere on that same card, though, a good fight here. Ethan James, 11-0. It's for the vacant WBO European welterweight title over 10 rounds. He gets in with James Moorcroft, who's 19-2. I think Moorcroft is the underdog, but definitely a live underdog in my opinion, in some decent form. Beat or knocked out Nathan Bennett in just two rounds last time out. Yeah, should be a good one. He's lost in good company as well. I don't think he's a mug at all. And then, yeah, the main event, obviously, all eyes to that. Friend of the show, Liam Davies, undefeated, 13-0. It's for the British, the EBU European, the WBC International, the WBO International, Super Bantamweight titles. So 4 belts on the line here. And he steps in with Jason Cunningham, 32-7. Cunningham coming off that win last time out back in March over Miguel Gonzalez. Liam Davies, though, as well, coming off that brilliant win against Baluta back in November of last year. Yeah, it's a good fight. It's a good domestic fight. It's a fight that I think has been rescheduled a couple of times, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, Liam Davies for me wins this fight, quite handily. I wouldn't be surprised to see a late stoppage from Davies, though I would more so lean towards a points win. But in my mind, I don't think Liam Davies has any problems with Jason Cunningham, and it'll be a good name on his resume as well. So I think he's going to come through that fight pretty unscathed, in my opinion. Moving out now to the big one. Actually, let's just go to this small card first, then we're going to finish on the big one. This one goes down at the Riders Field in Frisco, Texas, USA. It's a Lou DiBella show over here. We're going to see 2 ladies getting it on. Sharetta Metcalf, 11-4 with a draw, 8 2-minute rounds against friend of the show, Melissa Odessa Parker, who's 6-0. Really good fighter, Melissa. I think she's kind of dabbled a little bit in MMA as well, if I'm not mistaken, just because she's a little bit starved of opportunities in boxing. But really good fighter, good amateur, obviously, good pro, undefeated, and she should be able to beat Metcalf here. I'd be quite surprised if she doesn't dominate her. But yeah, all the best to her, even though she's in the away corner again. So yeah, should be a good one there. That's again in Frisco, Texas, Saturday night. But also on that same Saturday night, I'm sure most eyes will be at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. It's going to be live on Showtime pay-per-view. On the undercard, let's just touch on that briefly. we're going to see Yoenis Tellez, who is just 5-0, I think with 4 KOs, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say four KOs. Cuban fighter based in Texas. He gets in with Sergio Garcia of Spain, who's 34-2. I think it's a mad step up. It's over 10 rounds as well at super welterweight. Sergio Garcia, I really rate him, honestly. His only 2 losses have come to Tony Harrison and Sebastian Fundora. He's coming off a win. I remember him absolutely beating the life out of Ted Cheeseman years ago, being at that fight, being thoroughly impressed. That was just over 4 years ago now, though. I think he's a really good fighter. Really, really good fighter. And for anyone to fight him in just their 6th pro fight, it's I'd say definitely going to go the distance. Garcia's not much of a puncher, but he's extremely tough, never been stopped by both of those guys, Harrison and Fundora. So it's a really, really stern test for just your 6th fight, and I think he's a live dog there, Garcia. I'm going to assume he's the underdog. No belt on the line, 10 rounds. Also on the card, friend of the show, the living legend, Nonito Donaire, first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. 42-7. This will be his 50th pro fight. It's for the vacant WBC bantamweight world title. He steps in with Alexandro Santiago, 27-3 with 5 draws. Nonito Donaire, of course, coming off that pretty brutal knockout loss to Naoya Inoue, which was in June of last year. So he's been out the ring for a year and a month there. I can't even think how old he is now. I think he's about, what's he got to be, about 41, 42, I think. I don't think I'm putting any years on him. I think he's about that. Obviously, listen, the first fight with Donaire was one of the best fights I've ever seen. It was such a technical, excellent fight. And then obviously after that, knocked out Nordin Ubali, looked brilliant. Knocked out Raymark Gaballo, looked brilliant. Got back in with Inoue, and all of a sudden, I don't know if he got old overnight or caught cold or whatever it was, but it was a puzzling showing considering he'd looked brilliant against other guys in the interim period from the first fight to the second fight with Inoue. And in the first fight, he looked brilliant, showed so much toughness. But again, he's getting on. There was 2.5 years between the first and second fight. And we haven't seen him since, and he's coming off a year out of the ring, and I'm just worried, and I hope I'm wrong, but I'm worried that Father Time may have caught up with him. I think we're going to see on Saturday night for sure, and he gets in with a capable fighter. Alexandro Santiago, like I say, 27-3, 5 draws, never been stopped in his 3 losses, and again, they've been in decent company. Lost to Gary Antonio Russell, that was back in 2021, November. Since then, he's coming off 3 wins in a row, beat David Carmona as well in there. Antonio Nieves as well, Juan Marquez as well. He's not a bad fighter. Got a draw a few years back with another Filipino fighter, Jerwin Ancajas. That one was back in 2018 for the IBF Super Flyweight World title. So, yeah, he's moved up in weight, obviously, slowly over the years, and finds himself in with Nonito Donaire. I just think it's. I'll be quite surprised if Nonito Donaire just walks through him, because he's a tough guy, like I say. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I don't know. I've got a feeling it's not going to go the distance, but I hope that Donaire still has enough to win this fight. It would be great for him to win another world title in his 50th pro fight. Honestly, the guy is an absolute legend and a fantastic fighter. Brilliant to have had him on the show as many times as we've had him on. Elsewhere on the card as well, we're going to see Isaac Pitbull Cruz, 24-2 with a draw. He gets in with Giovanni Cabrera, who's 21-0. Cabrera, last time out beat Gabe Flores. I remember watching that fight, actually. That was on the undercard of Joet Gonzalez and Isaac Dogbe. I remember watching that fight. I was quite impressed with him, actually. But like I say, gets in with Isaac Cruz, who a lot of people feel is a little bit overrated, like what's his best win kind of thing. There's mixed kind of reviews, I guess, when it comes to Isaac Pitbull Cruz, but fun fighter for sure. Obviously lost to Gervonta Davis back in 2021, but since then has come back with 2 good wins, 2 knockout wins, Yuriorkis Gamboa and Eduardo Ramirez. So he's in some decent form, and always fantastic to see Pitbull Cruz. And then let's just move to that main event. That's I'm sure what all the listeners want us to get to. Let's go there. Errol Spence Jr. 28-0. Terence Crawford 39-0, 12 rounds at welterweight, undisputed titles on the line, the IBF, the WBA, the WBC, the WBO. I feel like there's so much to say on this fight, Eddie, and we're probably going to just take it piece by piece a little bit here, rather than me say my bit, you say your bit. Keeping it short, do you think that we will see or hear the final bell here? Both guys, of course, can bang. Spence usually dispatches of, his opponents, most of the time. And Terence Crawford has got that 100% knockout streak going at welterweight. But will we see a knockout here in your heart of hearts? How do you see it going in terms of a knockout or the distance?
I think, to be quite honest, I think we're probably going to see a distance fight. But it wouldn't surprise me to see it in late. This fight can go so many ways, and I know it's hard. We're not going to drag this all out, because I think the way Terence can win the fight is by not only he's going to have to, first of all, get respect from Earl, and have to make him pay a price to be busy. Because that's one thing that Earl's going to do. He's going to be throwing punches, and he's going to be really generous with the amount of punches he throws. But if Terence Crawford can really make him not only respect, maybe even wobble him or buzz him, then, I could see it maybe being even an early night. But the way I see the fight going is I think that, Terence is going to probably he may be doing okay early. But I think as the fight goes on, that pressure, the amount of punches that Earl's going to throw, the amount of hard punches, that activity is just going to eventually wear on him. It's just like when you see him in there now. These other fighters aren't Terence Crawford, but when you've seen him in there, even like when he's like with Danny Garcia, and then even with I think he fought him last, if I'm not mistaken.
Ugas.
The one. Ugas. There you go. You didn't see Ugas. Great fight. These are good fighters, really good fighters. And eventually, even with Kell Brook a while back, just at first doing really well, landing good shots, you know what I mean? But Earl's just determined, and his pressure, and, he's just going to be there, and he's going to throw punches, and it's going to last. And eventually it gets to you. Just continually, especially with Terence Crawford's power and his ability, some of those shots he may land, and to keep seeing this guy just keep on coming. You know what I mean? And it's not like he's throwing, soft shots at you. He's throwing hard shots continually, stand in your face, always with the foot pressure, just feints, always moving, always causing you to be on the defensive. You know what I mean? It's just really difficult to deal with. And I just see that pace and eventually breaking him down. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying he's going to walk through him. But I just think that pace is going to eventually get to him. It's just like when you watch him fight some of these other guys. Obviously, Terence Crawford is not these other guys. But it's just you could just see the fight squeezed out of him. You know what I mean? By the end of the fight. So, I still think a distance fight. I'm not going to say it's not going to be a distance fight, but I just think that if there is a stoppage, in my opinion, it would be Earl late. It'd be Earl late. You know what I mean? 9, 10, 11, something like that. You know what I mean? Maybe 8, because it's just that pressure. And I know, and another thing that Terry, he'll fight with you. He'll go in the kitchen. He'll fight with you. And I think that would be a big mistake here. I think he needs to work smart at range, try to land shots, try to make Earl reach, try to make him reach, and then make him pay. But if he can't do that and he starts to try to get in the mix, it's going to be a rough night.
It's interesting, man, because, again, there's so many ways this fight can go, and this is a fight that, lots of us have spent so much time dreaming of happening in our heads, and finally it's here this Saturday. Like, honestly, it's a dream come true. It's Christmas Day here for boxing fans, especially obviously hardcore boxing fans. I wanted to ask you, Eddie, you said there about if there's a stoppage you can see Spence getting the stoppage late. I'm going to assume that you're expecting maybe Spence to finish stronger of the two. Is that right? And are you maybe expecting Terence to start quicker?
Well, normally Terence Crawford has to, he's a slow starter. You know what I mean? But just like with, I forget who he fought recently. Normally he was Avanesian. He picked the pace up early, and I think in this fight he's going to definitely have to at least give him something early. He's not going to be able to just sit back and wait. Because even worse than mixing it up with him is to give him that momentum to keep being active and putting his hands on him comfortably in the first few rounds. Because it's like when you watched him fight Mikey Garcia, and Mikey Garcia just didn't have any answers. But it was like at first, he tried to get in there, he tried to have a look or whatever and wait, and Earl just got on the case right away, letting his hands go. And that's what he does. And eventually you'll just be sitting there watching. You know what I mean? Because it's like you want to protect yourself. You want to keep yourself out of harm's way. You don't want to get caught with anything stupid. So, you got this guy throwing all these hard shots at you. You're going to kind of sit on your hands a little bit while he's doing it, or at least keep your defense tight and look for an opening. The problem is he's not going to stop. You know what I'm saying? And if Terence has one of those starting slow kind of thing, like I said, he's going to have to hurt him in order to get his foot in there. You know what I'm saying? He's going to have to hurt him, because if he doesn't hurt him and it's just like he can take the shots to keep coming, it's going to be a long, long night. You know what I mean? But we've seen Terence Crawford, like even with Terence was in that fight with Sean Porter, he kind of was a little, slow to start, and even in the middle rounds he was having trouble because Sean Porter's a tough guy. I mean, he's a difficult style to fight for anyone. You know what I mean? And I guess it wasn't until somebody gave him they said Sean Porter was up, and then he picked it up to close the fight out. But with this fight, it's going to be totally different. He's going to have to find a good pace early. And even with that good pace, he still can't be exchanging and trying to make the fight a Earl Spence kind of fight. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even like, if I can't remember 100% what went on so much with Kell Brook. Early on, he was having success, catching with good shots. But then as the fight wore on, Earl got closer and closer and closer, and then the punches start picking up, and then that's when it all went downhill. This can't mirror that. He's going to have to hurt him. I mean, like, really hurt him. Like, keep him on the back foot, make him respect that you can't just come in here and you're going to have to sit and watch me throw punches at times. And I honestly, and I'm not trying to I'm not like an Earl Spence fanboy or none of that crap. It's just the way I see it. You know what I mean? It's how I see the fight playing out. It's just like one of those things where he's going to have to eventually do something dramatic in order to control, well, let's just say to have the damage control in order. Because if he doesn't, he's going to be sitting there taking punches, trying to figure out when to throw a counter shot and all that shit, and he's going to be behind. And he's just going to be behind, and then eventually he's going to have to get desperate, and then that's when he's going to end up fighting Earl Spence's fight, and then I just don't see him being able to keep up with that pace. You understand what I'm saying? I think that's what's going to make it really, really tough for him. So he's going to, in my opinion, if Terence can't hurt him and get that kind of respect, it's going to be a hell of a tough night for him. Trust me.
Yeah, I really try my best not to think back to the Kell Brook fight. Obviously, I always felt that after Kell boxed Golovkin, almost lost his sight in one eye, and obviously come down from middleweight back down, crashed away. I didn't ever really enjoy giving Spence too much credit for that victory, because it just never sat right with me. And obviously the version of Kell that Terence Crawford wiped out was also not the same. Yeah, it was even less, a complete shell of his former self.
Well, the reason I say it is because Kell had success early, in the fight and was doing well at times. So it may not have been the best version, but he still got results. It's just that he got damaged again. And, once again, like I said, second half of the fight, Earl started picking it up even more. And it's just like, I'm just thinking of a guy who's a good boxer, good counter puncher, good puncher in general, and just somebody that can give you trouble. But I just think with a guy like Earl Spence, I have rarely seen this dude take a backward step. You know what I'm saying? He's offensive, but at the same time, he's defensively responsible at times. I don't like his brand of defense and how he does it necessarily, but that's just me. But he still gets the job done. And a lot of times his offense is his defense. I mean, he's throwing so many heavy shots at you, keeping you on the, it's like, damn, give him an opportunity to throw a punch. And that's just what I'm seeing. And if he's able to get into that vintage Earl Spence mode, it's going to be a hell of a hard fight for Terence Crawford to get into it. But if he can hurt him and maybe drop him or get some, getting them legs to be a little bit wobbly, might be singing a different song. But it's just the way I see it. And he's a tough guy. And he's not a bad boxer. He's really good at a lot of things. He may not be the greatest boxer. He may not be the greatest defensive fighter. But his motor, his work rate, his belief in himself, his energy, it's hard to ignore, man. It's going to be a hard fight if he can't get this dude on his heels.
Yeah, again, thoroughly looking forward to it. I have a feeling, I do agree, I feel like Terence does need to kind of start fast, I think really both men need to start fast here. I think the early rounds are going to be super important. I think though that Terence, I would much, I don't know, sometimes words just jump out and they don't really make much sense, but I was going to say I would much favour Terence when it comes down to being the smarter fighter. I feel like early on Terence will be doing just enough to pinch rounds, just enough, but intentionally fighting like that. I don't think he's going to try to completely come out and dominate rounds. I feel like he's going to want to do just enough, but also save something for late on. And I mean, I've said it from the get-go, I've always favoured Terence Crawford to win this fight. Not once have I changed and felt that Spence would win. I've always thought Terence would win this fight, so I am going with Terence. That's going to be my pick. I think potentially on points, though. Again, people are already saying that the scorecards could be cooked a bit here because it's going to be like a PBC show, obviously. That's my only concern. I hope there's no controversy. I think it's going to be probably a good enough fight anyway where we're going to want to see it again. I don't think we need controversy added to that, where we have to see it again to see a fair decision and stuff. Hopefully the right man gets the verdict if we do see it go to points, but I think Terence will outpoint him just based off of his ring IQ and how smart he is. I think there's going to be a lot of switching of stances and stuff like that. I think he's got more in his arsenal than Spence has. That's just me, but I do know that Spence, of course, has that insane work rate. Obviously, the size again is going to probably play a factor, and yeah, he can certainly punch as well. One thing that a lot of people do like to bring up is that, that fight they both had. Obviously, forget about Kell Brook. Again, they both boxed him at completely different stages. But the fight with Sean Porter, a lot of people I've seen online recently like to remind us that Sean Porter was well in that fight with Terence Crawford, you know. Terence did stop him, which was obviously a bit of a statement, but obviously it ended a bit kind of strange. He probably could have carried on. I don't think he needed to retire in the ring right after that either. But, you know, Terence did get the stoppage on paper, and Terence did have some issues with him. Of course he did. But let's not forget about issues here and there. Let's not forget that a lot of people felt Sean Porter did enough to beat Spence over 12 rounds. And that's something that a lot of people don't seem to want to remember for some reason.
I haven't forgotten it. I think, but styles make fights, and certain things at certain times, you know, play a part. I just think Sean Porter's style works better. Actually, like I said, he was doing really well in both of those fights. I just think that Terence Crawford has that, maybe that little extra bit in explosive power, you know, one punch power. You know what I mean? More so maybe than Spence does. I think Spence is more so an accumulative kind of guy. So, and don't get me wrong, he caught Sean Porter with a good shot in through the course of their fight. Spence did, dropped him, but regardless of that, you know, that can happen. But I just don't see Spence as that boom, one punch knockout dude, right? No super explosive kind of puncher. He can punch, but I think he's more of an accumulative kind of guy. Whereas Terence Crawford, he catch you boom, and he could freeze you, put you down. And I think that was the difference with him in their respective fights with Sean Porter. But make no mistake, Sean Porter was in both of those fights, but it was just a different kind of feel. If Earl had the same kind of explosive power, that might have been ended in a knockout as well around that same time that he got dropped. You know what I mean? So it's how you mesh with a fighter. You know what I mean? I just think that Earl and Sean Porter are made for each other. It's excitement with that. Not saying that it wasn't exciting with Terence Crawford, but that kind of fight, these guys pounded on each other. Neither one of them are super huge punchers, but they can get your respect. And I think that's why in that kind of fight with those two guys, and they're both in your face. Sean Porter's a different kind of guy. He's in your face in a different way. Like, he coming in head first, you know, elbows, pushing. He's a roughhouse guy. So it's going to be difficult with Sean, especially where Earl trying to throw a lot of punches, trying to get his hands off a lot. That kind of fight with them two is going to be really hotly contested. Whereas he'll have similar success in a way with Terence, but Terence got that explosive power and at range understands how to land certain shots, different angles. He could be in there southpaw, orthodox. So he does have a couple different wrinkles, and I think Sean Porter ran into a couple of shots with Terence Crawford that he set traps in. So that's where there's a little difference, because Terence Crawford had a little bit of extra with his explosive power, which is, I think, was really the difference. Probably a little quicker, you know what I mean, there, Earl. But it's just that he has to catch you. You know what I'm saying? And he's not a super overly busy guy like Earl. Like, Earl will wear you down, kind of thing. But with Sean Porter, that plays into his hands, because Sean Porter's looking to wear you down. So you see how those two fights work. You know what I mean? He had success in both, Sean Porter did, but more so with Earl because of their styles. Now you put Terence and Earl together, completely different fights. So it's like, so when you say one fighter fought both, like you say they both fought Sean Porter, that's great. And really, the outcome doesn't matter of both those fights. Shit, Earl could have lost to Sean Porter, and I still would say this fight is going to be different. And I still would still favor Earl Spence. It's because of how the styles match up in my mind. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be right, but I just see it differently. You understand what I'm saying? I think Sean Porter, it just works a little bit better with Earl than he did with Terence. And I explain why, because of that explosive power and, you know, him trying to, you know, jump in, lunge in, he got caught coming in. And that's the difference. You know what I mean? But I still think that Earl I think it's just gonna be too much for Terrence after a certain amount of time in the ring. I just think it's gonna be a lot, man. It's gonna be a good fight, but if Terrence can't land that shot and get that respect and get him to go on his heels or wobble him or drop him, it's gonna be a long night, just like I said.
And just in one sentence, Eddie, obviously I'm going with Terence Crawford. I think decision, which is as good as 2-1. Terence is the betting favourite. Are you going? Obviously, you're definitely going with Spence. But if you were pushed, Spence decision or Spence by stoppage?
If I was pushed, I know Terence is a tough guy, and obviously he ain't never lost and never been stopped, and he got the heart. He got a huge heart. But if I was gun to my head, I would say Spence late stoppage. I'm talking pretty late, 10, maybe 9, 10, 11. You know what I mean? I would say that if it's gonna be anything, I'm gonna say, I want to say decision so bad, but I'm just gonna go ahead and late stoppage for Earl. I mean, I could be way off base, but I'm gonna say late stoppage for Earl Spence.
Wow. Well, there we go. That's a big statement. Errol Spence late stoppage. Rounds 9 to 12. You get 12-1, and just the knockout itself 6-1 at any point. So that's interesting. But anyway, that brings the preview part to a close. In part 1, we did the review part. Then we welcomed our special guest. In part 2, we did the news. We've just wrapped up the preview part of the show. Oh boy, it was fun talking about Errol Spence and Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. What a fight it's going to be on Saturday night. The final thing for me to do, though, in this part is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 406 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge shout out to this week's special guest, the Morecambe Featherweight contender, Mr. Isaac Lowe. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in. There has been one piece of news break whilst we've been recording the show. Actually, two pieces of news. We're going to start with this one here. The undercard has been announced, or most of it at least has been announced, for the Liam Smith Chris Eubank Jr. 2 card. The date for that, once again, to remind you, is September the 2nd at the Manchester Arena. We're going to see friend of the show Dave Allen stepping in with Fraser Clark. We're going to see Florian Marku stepping in with Dylan Moran. We're going to see a really good domestic fight here between Mark Heffron and Jack Cullen. And we're also going to see a ring return for Ben Whittaker. No opponent just yet for him, but hopefully it's a decent opponent. Also, the other piece of news is that there's been a fight announced on the undercard of Zhang Joyce 2, which again, the date for that is September the 23rd. We're going to see friend of the show Anthony Yard stepping in with Ricky Summers. So that's a good little fight there, you know, between two good light heavyweights. I'm expecting Anthony Yard really to come through that unscathed. I would be quite surprised if Ricky Summers was able to put up much of a fight. I'm just going to be brutally honest. I think Anthony Yard is that good, and still for me probably one of the best fights all year was his fight with Artur Beterbiev, which I was very fortunate enough to be there. On the undercard as well, again, there's a lot of guys not linked with an opponent just yet, but we will see Sam Noakes, we'll see Pierce O'Leary, we'll see Royston Barney-Smith, Tommy Fletcher, Moses Itauma, Alois Yumbi, and also one fight that has been made, Ezra Taylor against Joel McIntyre. Again, quite a decent little fight there, especially for Ezra's just his 7th pro fight. But yeah, like I say, that's about everything from myself now. Enjoy your weekends, people. I'm sure you all will. There's a mammoth fight taking place on Saturday night, and I just cannot wait. I just want time to fast forward. I'm so ready. I'm so excited. I'm sure you'll all enjoy the fight as much as I will. And remember, just if you do get a chance, please follow us on our new Twitter, which is at BoxHard_podcast, where you can now find us there. But like I say, that's all from me, and we'll see you same time next week.